It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, today we're going to jump on that Sharp Interactive board. I want to share my thoughts on Sharp's first quarter. The numbers are in. Sharp took about a $48 million operating profit loss for the whole entire company for their first quarter, and that's not good by any stretch of the imagination. We all know that when Sharp ended their last FY, which ended March of 2023, they had a massive impairment charge. Most of the losses, most of the impairment charge were all credited to their device business unit. And the device business unit is still dragging down the company as a whole. They have to fix these issues. I believe they are on track to fix these issues, but at the end of the day, they need to hurry up and fix them. I also have some concerns regarding their smart office category within the brand business unit. It used to be called 8K Ecosystems, and I really love the new name, Smart Office. Makes a lot more sense. But folks, the operating profit percentage against revenue, other than the fourth quarter of last year, has been struggling. And it needs to get up there. It needs to get to that 5 and 6 and even 4.5% consistently. It can't get 2.5%. And I realize they had a nice fourth quarter, but at the end of the day, when you look at the quarters prior to that, it hasn't been any home runs. They had a couple quarters where they weren't even at 1%. And when you look at the appliance part of the business, their operating profit, it just kicks ass. They're in the 5.5%, 6%, and it's pretty consistent. And I believe it's consistent because the Smart Life category, where all those appliances live, they're rifle focused on selling what they make, the appliances. And I believe when you look at the Smart Office category within the brand business, that's where the MFPs live. That's where the displays units live. These collaboration boards that I'm using here today. That's where that Dynabook lives, the old former Toshiba notebook, now called Dynabook. And in that group, there's wonderful products for Sharp to sell. And I'm very, very concerned that Sharp's taken the route we're seeing Konica Minolta take over the last 12 years. Let's get into this IT services business. And the reality of it is, I believe that the All Covered and all those assets that they bought up underneath All Covered over at Konica Minolta is causing them most of their problems and not being able to make any money inside the print sector. And I will tell this to Sharp. Sharp, if you're willing to share the numbers on everything you're doing in that IT services business every quarter, you're willing to share, this is the revenue that we collected from services. This is the profit on that revenue. And if those numbers look good, I'll be more than happy to brag for you. But if you're going to get into the IT services space and you really believe that's something you're going to be able to do and sustain and build a profitable model on, but then you don't want to share all of the numbers, I'm going to be very, very concerned for you. Because I don't believe you're going to be able to get that business unit operating profit up consistently past 2.5 or 3%. And that's not enough in these trying times for any kind of hiccup along the way. So let's jump on the board and see what I put together here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Sharp's top line number for the whole company was $3.8 billion. They had a $48.8 million loss. Let's look at the two different groups. We got the brand business group. In the brand business group, we have Smart Life Energy, Smart Office, and Universal Network. Smart Office is where the MFPs live. All those friends of mine that sell supply that stuff, right? We all know what the Smart Office is. It used to be called 8K Ecosystem. That group on its own did $883 million in top-line revenue. They had an operating profit of $21.6 million, 2.5%. But as I was talking about as I opened up today's episode, if you go to the first quarter of FY 2022, they had a 0.9%. If you go to the second quarter, it was 0.9%. If you go to the third quarter, it was 2%. If you go to the fourth quarter, it was 6.4%. And now this first quarter, we're at 2.5%. I do congratulate Sharp for moving up the percentage in that fourth quarter, for being higher in this first quarter than they were last year, other than the fourth quarter. But at the end of the day, 2.5% is not going to get you there. You got to get to 4 and 5%. Let's look at the Smart Energy Life business unit within the brand business, and that's where that appliance business is. Top line revenue was $743.5 million for the quarter. Their operating profit was $48.1 million. So you could see they did a little less in revenue, but the operating profit was double. They came in with a 6.5% operating profit, but let's go back in time. The fourth quarter of last year, they had a 5.3% operating profit. The third quarter, they had a 5.4%. The second quarter, they had a 7.2%. And the first quarter, they had a 6.6%. And folks, they're consistent. That Smart Life energy business is consistent with operating profit. And I truly believe the reason they're consistent with it is because they're selling things they make, and that's their focus. They're selling things they make, and that's their focus. And I'm very, very concerned that the reason the operating profit is going to stay low and sometimes be barely over 1% inside the Smart Office is the costs that are going to be associated with trying to go out there and sell services on things you don't make. I'm very, very concerned about it. And we saw this happen with Konica Minolta. We're seeing the low operating margin that our friends over at Ricoh have, and I believe a lot of that is based on them doing the same things. And they're running around, and they went out and bought up all this growth around services, and we can see where they're at. But when you go to Sharp's website and you look at the products, they got great products. I mean, look at this. They got great MFPs. They got collaboration displays. They got this Synapse software that kind of ties this stuff together. They got the Dynabook laptops. Used to be the Toshiba notebooks, right? They got the displays and projectors. There's all kinds of products for the Sharp direct operations and their dealers to go out into the marketplace and sell. Products that Sharp makes and manufactures. That's what OEMs need to stay focused on. Making products and taking them out on the marketplace and selling those products. Sell these products to the IT services people. I want to show you this next slide, and I wanted to come up with an analogy because I really want to do everything I can to convince Sharp not to go down this road. And as I said when I opened up today's episode, if Sharp wants to share the numbers every single quarter of the progress on their IT business and the profitability of that progress, I'd be more than happy to share those numbers and help them brag about the story. But ladies and gentlemen, we can't just jump into the services business and think the other businesses are going to pay for it. The times we're in are tough, are real, real tough. So let me show you this slide I put together. This was copied off an article that came out after Sharp had their annual meeting. And I did an episode on this, and I shared some concerns then. They were bragging about this Fuji big giant production machine, and I'm like, what are you doing? Don't do it. You don't need to do it. You're going to sell 10 of those if you're lucky. It's going to completely distract you in the marketplace. Focus on the stuff you make. Getting into high-end production, using someone else's machine can cut some costs. Yeah, I get all that. But the cost of the distraction, I don't think it's going to be worth it. I don't think it's going to be worth it. They also talked about IT security. You know, I can understand being very versed on understanding the security around a printer, around your devices you're selling. But running around in a marketplace trying to build these IT security services, IT businesses, selling all these services is not going to work. You got peers out there that have proved it to you. I'm very, very concerned. Let's talk about this Smart Life energy business. You can see that's a Sharp refrigerator full of food. Could you imagine if the executives at Sharp Life and Energy decided they were going to start opening up grocery stores so they could sell the food to put in the refrigerator? That's my analogy. I believe when these manufacturers get into these IT services, they're trying to fill up the refrigerator. They want to own the grocery store too. That's not their core. That's not what they do. They don't own grocery stores. They make stuff. They make stuff and they go out on a marketplace and sell it. And I believe that's why Smart Life and Energy has a consistently higher profit. Folks, all you got to do is look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie. They're unemotional. And I know some of what I'm talking about is probably pretty painful for some of my friends at Sharp. But the numbers don't lie. Can you honestly sit here and tell the world that you're going to get that 5.5%, 6, 7% operating profit as you go into this IT services business? And as you're doing that, what are you going to distract yourself from? Sharp, I love you guys. You got great products. Go in the marketplace and sell those great products. Sell them to the IT service providers. Form relationships with IT service providers that'll buy your great products to put into those customers' offices where they're selling all these services that have nothing to do with products you make. Sell them the products. You'll be so much better off. And here's a slide I want to share with you because the opportunity for Sharp in America and Europe is phenomenal. And I think I've shared this with you all before. But if you look at this purple section right there, that's the amount of revenue that Sharp's doing in China. If you look at the blue, that's the amount of revenue that Sharp's doing in Japan. If you look at the orange, which is a very small little line right there, that's their revenue coming out of the Americas. And the green is their revenue coming out of Europe. I believe that geopolitics is going to play a heavy role in all industries, with all manufacturers, especially regarding China. And I believe that Sharp has great potential to move the revenue numbers way up in Europe and way up in America as they bring in products to satisfy the needs of those customers, whether those are appliances, whether those are notebooks. I think about that Dynabook. That Dynabook has a huge potential because we all know that there's another notebook out there manufactured by Lenovo, a PRC company. I believe that Lenovo is probably just maybe a year away from being in the position we see like Nine Star and Lexmark in. Geopolitics is going to play a role in all industries and with all manufacturers. Sharp, you have great opportunity to grow your business in America and Europe. Great opportunity. Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted by that gigantic machine that you're going to sell 20 a year of. Don't get distracted by going into the marketplace and selling services on things you don't make or manufacture. Because I want to share the success stories of Sharp because you got a sweet spot in my heart. And everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.